Disclaimer: the subject matter discussed in this show relates to weapons and other items that have been or could be used in violent acts. The discussion of these items is intended only for education and entertainment. We do not condone or support violent or improper use of any topics discussed in this show. Hey, welcome back to Wicked Weapons. This is going to be kind of one of our typical episodes, unlike the last one that me and Matt did. So this is going to be our first bladed weapon, and we are actually joined again by David. He is making a return today.
Hey, how's it going?
And as always, we have Matt on as well.
What's up?
So I guess without further ado, we'll get into this. So the Gauntlet Sword. Many of you are familiar with what a sword is. When I say the word sword, you probably have an image of one in your mind. But what if I told you that some swords didn't look the way we traditionally picture them? Today's topic is one of those swords that just doesn't look quite right. Originating in India, the pata, is thought to have been used in warfare in the 17th and 18th century. The pata or dandpata, so dandpata is like the full name for it in the, I think it was Marathi language, but it's known in English commonly as the Gauntlet Sword. I thought it was really weird that it was used in the 17th and 18th century. If I'm thinking correctly, that would be like 1600s and 1700s. I feel like that's pretty late, but I guess it was in India, so I guess they weren't as developed as Europe was at that point.
Yeah, I
They
guess so.
they always did. India always had some crazy designs. Even if, like, go back to the guns, you look at some of their guns, like they were designed to be shooting from like right on a camel and all this. They've got like crazy stocks that like go under the arm instead up against your shoulder, and
Oh yeah, I've seen some of
they're
those.
they're just crazy. They look like they'd just be uncontrollable to shoot, but they were specifically designed, which obviously this one had some crazy designs, and be interesting to see how many types they had to go through before they figured something out.
Yeah.
You
Um,
say, and thinking this is originating in India, I do wonder if maybe some of it was they did this on purpose, maybe for like fighting in sandy areas.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
That way you weren't like holding your sword out and like say you trip in the sand, you fall, like the sword's kind of right there to stab you or slice you. But instead, this way it's kind of
like
hanging down.
losing your
So if you
balance kind of thing.
Yeah. So if you
Okay.
fall, you're not gonna like stab yourself as easy, maybe, and that might be part of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I could see that because there's not even the possibility because it's like rigid on your wrist, so like there's no risk of turning it back towards you. Um,
Yeah.
so I just looked it up, and Dandpada directly translates to Gauntlet Sword in English. I
That
meant
makes
I
sense.
meant to look that up last night when I was working on this, but I just ran out of
I
time.
know I know absolutely nothing about sword fighting, but to me that seems like that would be you'd be really limited on like your defense,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
because it's meant to like straight out or straight up, because
Right.
every all movements at your elbow.
yeah,
I was thinking, if that gauntlet goes all the way around, I kind of wish we had like a 3D image you can like, spin. It almost, if it's the same metal as the sword, which I'm assuming it is, almost be like a little bit of a shield right there or along your wrist. You can almost parry, but there's not really
Hmm.
a cross guard to lock the other person's sword down.
yeah. Like catch
Um,
it. Um,
so
Hmm.
very interesting why they didn't put a cross guard, even like a small one.
I wonder
yeah.
if that was just like your offhand defense sword.
Could be. I didn't think about that either.
Well, let's see. I guess Matt, do you want to take design?
Yeah. Design. Before we talk about the design of the gauntlet sword, it's important that we talk about the design of traditional swords first. A traditional sword is made up of four main components: a pommel, a grip, a cross guard, hand guard, and the blade itself.
Yeah, so a lot of like the officer swords, they would have like that ornate like cage around your hand,
Mm-hmm.
like a rapier sword.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that those are more of the hand guard style, whereas this one I've got image here is like the cross guard style. And like David was saying, a lot of them would be made with kind of loops or like hooks to try and catch the other person's blade in that cross guard, because at that point you've got their blade locked in and you can manipulate the sword, manipulate their sword, and you can angle your sword towards them.
And
Yeah, I know
even
nothing about sword fighting besides watching movies.
yeah, and even katanas, they have. I mean, they range, but some of them have like a smaller guard, but there's still something there to at least if a sword, it's like a slicing motion. You try to kind of catch, maybe not parry away, but you're kind of like catch it. It'll slice down and land on that cross guard.
Yeah.
Whereas this gauntlet weapon, plus the fact that you're like holding it straight out as an extension of your arm, um, it's just, I don't know, in that little opening on it almost looks like if your hand's not held tight in, you're gonna slice some fingers off.
Yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me like, with that gauntlet portion being so curved, like you're saying, a sword hits that blade and slides down, it would just like run off that curve and hit you, you know?
Let's say, and almost deflect it at your body. I mean, I, I would like to see a video of like this in action, and see how they actually fight with it. And they would give, I guess, it would just help see what their design was meant for.
Yeah, when I go to edit, I'll have to look and see. It was really hard to find images for this one. And as y'all will see in a minute, I did do some diagram type stuff. But anyways, I guess Matt, if you want to finish this page out.
All right. The way that the grip and blade are in line with one another on a traditional sword causes the blade to typically be close to perpendicular to your arm while holding it. However, it allows for flexibility of the wrist while wielding it, allowing for versatile positioning and better leverage in certain situations, especially on a sword with a two-handed grip where one hand can be your primary grip and your secondary hand can be used to adjust the hand quick angle quickly, basically whipping the blade around.
Yeah, I don't know if I explained that well enough, but that's kind of a thing in sword fighting, specifically with long swords, is that, like, say, if you're right handed, your right hand is the main hand holding the sword, right? So if we look back up at this one, where I have the blade crossguard grip thing, you can see that that one's actually a two-handed longsword. So your right hand would go like in between the crossguard and that ring in the grip, and then your left hand would be lower down towards the pommel, where you're holding the sword with your right hand, but then your left hand can pull back on the pommel and basically propel the sword forward.
And your right hand's your pivot point,
Right.
where everything pivots around it. You're using leverage on the back of it.
Right. This is basically the best picture I could find of showing like somebody holding a sword, and that angle, I would say it's probably like 120 degrees or so. I don't know. What do y'all think? Maybe it's 100
Yeah,
or 110.
give or take.
But yeah, I mean, it's basically just showing like it's pretty close to perpendicular to the angle of your arm. And so on the Gauntlet Sword, however, the grip was positioned perpendicular to the blade itself, resulting in the blade basically being an extension of the wielder's arm. So, and like David was saying, like there's no, like man, there's just no like underside gauntlet at all. I feel like your fingers get cut off.
Yeah, the ones I had seen that like in pictures or in other movies that were kind of this, I always thought they were closed. I didn't know that it was just a back cap to your wrist. I thought it would you insert it all the way into it. So yeah, that seems like that would be.
And I know, David, you said something about like your hand slipping out. They did have like straps on the underside of the wrist. Most of
Okay.
them did. So it was like you'd put your hand in there, grip it, and then you'd tie that strap in. Um,
Gotcha.
and I don't know, some of them may have been like a clamshell type where
Could
like
be.
you
Could
put
be.
your hand in and close it around. I feel like that would be better.
Also, I
So,
wonder if they had like metal line. If they had like the chainmail gloves.
yeah, they
Um,
probably
A
did.
couple
I
lot
wonder if
too.
they did.
All right. The Pata, or Gauntlet Sword, was featured in the game Elden Ring, as shown by this example image, showing a knight wielding two patas, and also showing how the blade is now in line or parallel to the arm. Can't remember if I was saying this when we were recording or right before, but you can make have some gnarly damage with this if you could wield it correctly. You could just like kind of spin. It feels like a video game move, just like take off in a tornado spin and cut through your enemies, but maybe you could do that, one, two spins and actually maybe catch some people off guard, maybe knock their swords away really hard and then go in for the kill. Just kind of a thought that came to mind. The main feature of the Gauntlet Sword is, of course, the gauntlet. The gauntlets were typically half gauntlets shown in the earlier image. They were usually padded on the inside, which make a lot of sense because you'd be having some jarring on your hand because the way that's designed.
Yeah, I know.
And
Like, especially think about if you went to like try to stab somebody with that thing, which the blades on these were like regular, like longsword length. So I mean and I'm not just going off of the Elden Ring thing. Like that's literally the ones that they found and recovered are like 40 inches in length. I mean they're long.
so they actually did use them in battle. There is
Yeah, yeah, they used them.
okay.
The Marathi like emperor in India was trained to use them, and he had
Okay,
like
that's cool.
bodyguards that used them too.
now that I think about it, I wonder if it was also maybe some way an intimidation factor because it's a different, the sword's different. Um,
All
kind of,
futuristic to them back in
yeah,
the
it would
day.
be like, what the heck? Like these swords are not anything like ours. They're, wielding two of them. It makes their arms look longer, especially from a distance you couldn't tell. Maybe if they were arms or swords.
Yeah, it
Um,
makes it
and and
makes it
and the
look
fact
like
that
it's
they're
part of them. You know.
yeah, and the fact that they're decorative, and then you said the emperor used it in his bodyguards.
Yeah,
And I wonder if it was more regulated to like the upper echelon. Maybe not all the foot soldiers would have this, but maybe like the officers or just
The
captains and
knights, the actual
generals.
knights and
Yeah,
stuff.
maybe
Yeah.
the knights.
based
Um,
off the fact that they were all like really ornamental, I'm thinking that yeah, it probably was a lot like the. I know
King's
David, you.
guards.
Well, I was actually thinking about the like the turnover flintlocks from when we did the pepperbox guns episode,
Oh yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
those were actually similar time period. You know, so it's like
mhm.
everybody who had one was getting it custom made, and it was real
Mm-hmm.
ornamental. And
Okay.
I'd like to see how much stuff like this would cost in today's money.
Way too
Oh man.
much. Because I'm guessing that's
I,
either gold or bronze, maybe brass, probably bronze.
even today, like in the custom gun building, machining, like there's only a handful of people that do that ornate carving that are actually doing it, not just letting a laser etch it, that
Yeah,
are actually carving in and inlaying gold. I mean, from looking and stuff, there's only like three or four people that I would trust to send off something, a fancy Colt or something like that to be engraved on the wheel or whatever. And so that's in modern day. So I can't imagine back then, you only got just one or two guys that could actually smith that out
yeah,
and be functional and stay together or, survive a battle.
Yeah. It's interesting when people do ornate stuff like that, especially by hand. Wood
Hmm.
carving, metal and engraving. It's really neat to see how people specialize in some of that, and just the time they spend on it. And I don't know, it shows a mastery over it.
Yeah. And
Yeah, for sure.
Matt, that's interesting. You talking about like there's not many people who could make something like that that would withstand actual battle. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've always looked at stuff like that and been like, oh yeah, that didn't get used, because that's just ornamental. Now, I did see a couple of images of a gauntlet sword that was not ornate. So I'm sure there were some that like some of the poorer knights and stuff had like just a plain gauntlet sword.
Right.
But yeah, so David, I'll let you keep going with the
Yeah, okay. They were usually padded on the inside, and the blade was held on by decorative arms extending out for several inches around the base of the blade, as that image shows. There was also a dagger design very similarly called the guitar, and I feel like this was, at least from a maybe usability or I feel like this dagger design makes the most sense to me. Maybe in the
Mm-hmm.
offhand, um, just like you parry with your either your gauntlet sword or a regular sword, and then you come in for like a quick stab or like try to catch them off guard when they're kind of on their off foot. Um,
yeah, because the guitar I could definitely see being a stab weapon, because it's like it's right there. It's not that long, and you literally have it just where you could just punch them real quick with it. You're leaving a
yeah,
7-inch
yeah,
hole in them.
and it's yeah. I had my microphone muted. And it's also a like a thicker blade I'm seeing. Maybe it
Yeah,
wouldn't be quite as flimsy. Now, I'm not saying the sword was flimsy per se, but just look at that thinner blade compared to like the long swords uh, that we have like in English history. Um, it just looks a little thinner. Maybe it would bend or give. Maybe not be as good for stabbing. Whereas this thicker um, dagger style is going to hold up more. So it's trying to pierce through that metal armor. I bet you anything, this would be really useful for assassins. Running really quickly, trying to sneak up behind someone, slice the neck, keep moving.
yeah.
Um,
So what I
less
thought
likely to lose
about,
your grip on it.
yeah, what I thought about with that one is it makes me think of the Assassin's Creed hidden
I'm
blades.
Mm-hmm.
just imagining that in my mind.
Um, Because yeah, I mean it's like basically the same concept. It's coming out as an extension of your arm. You know, um,
Wolverine.
um,
yeah. So David, I'm gonna let you do usage as well, and then I'll actually add in a little bit about it after you read it.
so as stated earlier, the pata was used in India. The restrictive grip is considered to be well suited to the stiff wrist style of South Asian swordsmanship. While it may seem like it would be a good thrusting slash stabbing sword, it was actually thought it was used more for slashing. Okay. The restrictive grip reduced flexibility, meaning that it would have been harder to angle the tip of the blade towards an opponent. There are also colonial era descriptions describing dual pata users spinning in a slashing attack, much like a windmill. Okay, all
Yeah,
right,
I
we're
as
hitting on
soon
it.
as you were saying that at the start of this, I was like, "Oh, he called it. He called it."
No wonder, like this. So video game moves are actually rooted in a little bit of history. I like it. There are also paintings depicting cavalry wielding patas on horseback, which led to theories that the patas were used in a thrusting, jousting style.
Yeah, so
Okay.
see, they discovered those paintings as they were like kind of researching this stuff, and so they were like, okay, this obviously must have been a thrusting or stabbing sword. It makes sense. You punch people. So you just stick a sword on there and you stab them. But a lot of people, a lot of the experts have problems with that theory because you think about it, you're on a horse and you stab somebody with that thing, they're on a horse too, and they're going by you.
A lot of
Your
leverage put on your wrists and
yeah, your arm is stuck in that thing, and probably end up getting pulled off your horse because your sword's wedged inside of them and going by. That's actually why they made knights, like the European knights and stuff. They had their joust things. I can't remember what those are called.
Like pugils or something like
Pugils. They made those specifically out of wood so that they would break. You know,
Gotcha.
so it's more of a real punch, you know, to try and knock the other guy off his horse. And then the other thing,
funny.
I added that about the flexibility of the wrist, making it harder to angle the tip of the blade towards an opponent. And Matt, you actually called that way early on about it, you know, being restrictive and stuff. But I'll let you say what you're going to say.
Oh, well, no, it was kind of funny. You're talking about videos, and we were talking about it before we started the killing floor. There was those two characters that had swords on their wrist, and they would come in
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that pirouette, spinny move thing.
Mhm.
I don't remember their names,
Um,
but and just like they mentioned in
What
here,
were those, like
they look like the
alpha
character off
clots
of-
or something like that?
yeah, something crazy like that.
Yeah, well, it's I'm glad that you brought that up because I'll go ahead and read the conclusion, but we can keep talking about it. So the Gauntlet Sword is a very different design from the traditional swords we think of. While the built-in gauntlet offered protection, in my opinion, it would have been too restrictive and would have prevented versatile use. Despite my opinion, however, the idea of blades coming directly out of your hands or knuckles is prolific in pop culture. From Wolverine's claws to Assassin's Creed hidden blades to the worst depiction of Deadpool ever. I don't know if y'all remember
I always
X-Men.
forget about that character.
Yeah, X-Men Origins Wolverine. They took away Deadpool's mouth, and instead of having his traditional katanas, they had them come out of his knuckles,
Really?
like Wolverine's
Oh my
claws.
gosh.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of hard to see in that picture, but yeah, that was the first on-screen depiction of Deadpool, and it was far and away the worst one. That's why, if any of y'all have seen Deadpool 2, he, like, time travels and kills that depiction of himself. Did you just
thought he was
delete a paragraph?
I thought he was. I know he killed. What was it? Shoot. The Green Lantern or something? No.
He I think he has like a doll or something of the Green Lantern. But yeah, he goes back in time and like that doorway opens up and Wolverine's like facing him, and you know you can kind of see in that picture that he's like walking through that doorway. But in Deadpool 2, Deadpool walks up and like shoots him in the head. And then shoots him like 6 more times, and he's like,
Okay. So I was thinking about the newest Deadpool, the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
I haven't seen
No.
that one. I haven't seen that one
So
yet.
forget what I said.
Okay. Spoilers,
Spoiler
David.
alert.
Come on.
I know.
I'm gonna have to-
Sorry.
Man, it's going to get really long doing these podcast intros. I'm going to have to do a disclaimer, a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. We didn't intend this, but Deadpool and Wolverine came up, and David gave it away.
Nah,
It's not like a major point, so it's not like a crazy thing.
I have.
I was wondering how long it was going to be before it was one of these episodes was tied into video games.
Yeah, I know.
I knew it wouldn't take long because I was already thinking. I was like, you know, what we ought to do is do one on like the Warthog or some of the Halo actual guns on
Fun.
there.
Oh,
It's like a
don't
video game version just for something to do. You know,
don't worry. I'm already planning on
it's
it.
in the works.
Yeah.
That's
Um.
cool.
They're like, like the evil mad scientists.
Well, hey, since we're
Exactly.
talking about Halo, the Halo Energy Sword is kind of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
same style.
exactly.
It comes straight
Yeah.
out
Exactly
from the
what it
wrist. The difference with
forgot
it
about
is
that.
though it has like those weird things that kind of come back towards your
Right.
wrist. So
Kill
if you
yourself with.
you bend your wrist too much, you're cutting your own hand off.
That's
So
what I always thought was weird, like the lightsaber that had the guards on it.
Cross
That,
guards,
I
yeah.
can't. Yeah, I was like, that just seems like one big wrist move, and you're like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
You got a robot hand.
Yeah, except it wasn't your dad that did it to you. It was
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
yourself with your own sword. Yeah.
well, you know, in the Star Wars comics, there was a light whip. So it was like a lightsaber, but the blade was like long and flexible. Um, so stupid. I mean, it's like, I don't know if y'all have ever tried doing stuff with whips or like take a rope
Oh,
and
yeah.
act like it's a whip, but like I always end up hitting myself. And I'm just like, how do you?
My dad could do the like twirl over. I had a long whip. I don't even know, just something to play with when I was younger, and Dad could always do like the twirl over your head and whip. And every time I did that, it would come back and smack me in the face or wrap around. I mean, I was like, I would never be an Indiana Jones. This thing would be just throw it in the trash. It'd be useless for me.
Well, hey, maybe we need to cover whips in a
Whips, yeah,
future
as well.
episode.
Whips and
Well.
slingshots and such.
That's what I was gonna say. The fact that they included this in Elden Ring, was really surprising to me. I think it was added in a DLC or something.
Can you look at the picture I sent you on Discord? In that, if you look at the chat menu, that's a picture of Mad Mardigan. I don't know if you can use that to show in, but that I was talking about in the movie Willow.
Oh
He's
yeah.
putting one on in that picture in the chat.
Oh yeah.
He picks it up off the battle. It wasn't his. Like, he's an amazing swordsman in this movie. And I can't remember if it was like one of his buddies or somebody. He picked up that because they just made like a little short scene of him putting that on. But it had like a crazy, like sawtooth, wavy blade design to the blade itself.
Like that makes me think of the like the Zwyander. We need to cover that one in a future. Man,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
list of stuff we're gonna
Oh.
cover just keeps getting longer, but that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
may have to do a side video game Wicked Weapon.
Yeah, for sure.
We could do a live stream video game testing one day. We test different
That would be
games or
fun.
different weapons and stuff, and then we talk about it.
One thing I thought about was like maybe doing like do a playthrough of Halo or a playthrough of like Dark Souls or something with one specific weapon, and that's all you use. You don't use any of the others. Like as far as if we were gonna start doing recording gameplay and stuff. But yeah, so I think we can all agree on my last statement that takes up a whole page in and of itself. That the idea of spinning like a windmill with two swords is pretty wicked.
Exactly.
We're in agreement on that one. And
I
I like
agree.
that the video game move is actually rooted in history.
I know.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so it was thought that like there's paintings and stuff depicting that it's primarily cavalry that would have these, and they'd be riding on a horse and like slashing people walking by. They actually, it's thought that they did like training where they would have like a fruit on the ground and they would come by on the horse and try to slash the fruit without touching the ground.
Wow.
Which pretty cool. But
So, what was that game? Is it Fruit Slasher, whatever? Even that's rooted in history.
yeah, Fruit Ninja, I think was
Ninja,
the
there we
name of
go.
it. But so the spinning like a windmill would be that would be like the infantrymen that would have these, and I think they typically would do that either as an initial attack or as a last resort. I'm not sure.
That makes sense. An
but
opening move would really like try to put your opponent on their back foot.
yeah,
And try to like, I mean, and you do this in,
careful.
it is similar things like this in sports. Like you try to do an initial move to try to put your opponent on your back foot, or on their back foot. You do this in sword fighting, like all kinds of things, and even in like fighting games and such. Come out with like a big attack, and it might make your opponent think twice before they do something like whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously you get surrounded by guys. I mean, that would be a good attack to at least make them keep their distance. You know.
Right. Maybe even possibly knock a couple swords out of hands if they're holding them in a traditional sense. Um, you know, make them knock a sword back. Maybe you can take a couple of them out and then just keep going from there.
Yeah. Now, what would be?
How long do you think you could do the windmill maneuver without actually getting dizzy and falling on the ground?
I don't know. You need a lot of Dramamine.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
as David already said, you get dizzy and start losing your balance, you're not going to stab yourself with these. So,
You're right.
might cut your leg off, but
Yeah, you might
Break
lose
your
your
wrist.
legs. You can't spin anymore. But
you know what would be really wicked is if we could all have 4 arms and 4 lightsabers, like General Grievous.
General Grievous, right?
Yeah, that's the real windmill move. Yeah. So, I don't know. Do y'all have? Do it.
It's like we went off topic partially on this one. Just this whole episode
Yeah,
planning on the next episode.
yeah, I know. Spent the last like
No, it's
15
cool.
minutes of the video or the recording. Yeah,
still
I just
good,
kind of I knew this would be a shorter one because I just kind of had to hobble it together real quick. Just a lot going on here lately, but hopefully we can get back on track here pretty soon. And yeah, do y'all either of y'all have any closing thoughts on the Gauntlet Sword before I wrap it up?
Not that comes to mind. No, I think it's interesting how many we've seen, and I didn't even really know there was a specific name to it.
Yeah,
Which is really interesting.
yeah, for sure.
I want one now.
You want one?
I
I
want one now. That's about it. I really want that dagger though because like I've collected a few things here and there, but nothing like a real version of a sword, and I would really love that dagger. I'm sure they're not cheap though,
yeah,
like any real ones. But even
yeah,
with
Matt.
like a
We go on a hunting trip and we're like, hey, we need to cut this twine or whatever, or shave
Pull out your dagger.
some bark off this wood so we can use it as kindling. And David's like, oh, I got you. And he pulls out a freaking guitar.
I got you, bro.
That's funny.
Hold my beer.
Well, all right. For any of y'all that are listening, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Peace out.